Happy Friday or Tuesday or whatever day you're tuning in, folks. If you don't know me, my name is Mike Asherbranner, professionally known as the Redneck Connector and proud and humble leader of the Hounds of Business community. And you're tuning in to Mike King Biz Radio on ESPN RVA 106.1 FM. Folks, I don't know if you've heard yet. Hopefully you have. This month, we're celebrating hashtag She Wins March. Big collaboration with our guest today, Lachelle Atkins, known as America's Supermom. And we are just riding this wave. This has been an stellar. We had a first week live stream last week. Go to Hounds of Business on YouTube, shameless plug. Join the celebration of these amazing, inspiring women, professional ladies who are sharing real wisdom and knowledge real time. So what a great way to kick this off with the one and only Lachelle Atkins. Again, known as America's Supermom, she's an entrepreneur, mental wellness advocate, and a woman who's overcome 13-year battle with depression to build a life rooted in purpose and pressure. No pressure. So this ain't about starting over. It's about starting to get aligned, folks. So today we're going to talk about reinvention, identity beyond titles, and how women can reclaim their power after burnout, delay, or depression. Let's get after it, folks. Welcome. Yep, they moved the buttons on me again, y'all. I'll be there.
Looks like your business might be in a bit of a pickle. Don't you worry about a thing. You ain't alone in this. You're just a success story waiting to happen. Trust me on that. Every bump in the road is just an opportunity wearing a clever disguise. Welcome to the Hounds of Business community, where we don't just sit around twiddling our thumbs. Nope. We turn those obstacles into mighty fine stepping stones. This here's a place where high-level entrepreneurs and sharp professionals gather to grow their businesses and mindsets, kind of like how a good old gumbo needs the right ingredients to be something special. Ideas thrive here, and collaborations, well, they're as natural as sweet tea on a hot day. Success, it's a journey, and we're fixing to walk that road right beside you. Now, don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn for all the latest tips and insights. We're talking about the kind of wisdom that'll keep you ahead of the game. And while you're at it, head on over to our YouTube channel. We've got ourselves a treasure trove of videos, from expert interviews to webinars, everything you need to stay sharp in this fast-moving world of business. The Hounds of Business community? Well, we ain't just a network, we're a movement. So why not come on and be part of something bigger? Join us today and let's turn your business journey into a real Southern success story. Together, we'll achieve greatness, just like crawfish and singing on a Friday night.
All right. Well, this amazing lady is from Atlanta, Georgia. So she probably knows more about crawfish singing on a Friday night than I do. Let's bring her on up, y'all. One and only Lachelle Atkins, America's Supermom. How are you?
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Mike. I'm so excited to spend some time with you. You always have me in stitches, cracking up. So I'm excited for, today's conversation. And I think laughter is important. We need that in order to continue to grow, have fun, and not take ourselves so seriously.
Amen to that. And when your best friend is a country guy in a camo hat like a circus monkey, you laugh a lot. I had to ease it off of you because I said, she ain't going to be able to breathe for this show, y'all. So real quick, I wanted to give a shout out to Lachelle Atkins. Without getting into the whole Mimi story, she had a really impactful, she made a big impact on my career. And as soon as I had the courage to go out there and to be me, take the suit off, put on the hat, very raw, very, very vulnerable, to be honest. And I got beat up. The next day I did it, I just got beat up. And then, along comes Supermom. She put me on her live stream. I had the courage to trust enough and do that. And I had a great experience, y'all. It was complete opposite. And I don't say that for any other reason to celebrate Lachelle and who she is as a person, but also to encourage other people. Hey, if you get out there and you try and you're out there and somebody knocks you down, get back up, because there's a Supermom waiting on you. Don't let them steal your dreams, dadgummit. World needs you. So anything to add to that before we get into the you show? Or
Oh, thank you so much. And you bring up a good point around, I think, just knowing the right people to align yourself with. I went through a lot of depression because I was feeling like I had to be somebody that I wasn't, or that I just, was too busy trying to be the perfect version of myself, which is impossible. So I love what you shared. And that's really what I try to do every day, is help people realize they already are enough, and that they can just walk in that every day.
Yeah, let's get into that, because I want folks to know where you came from. right? You just didn't
Mhm.
wake up one day at a coffee shop and write a book and sell stuff. And you lived a very
Yeah.
challenging experience, right? And so when people hear America's Supermom, they see strength. But
Mhm.
who were you before the healing?
Well, I think that's a great question. And one thing you didn't mention was that I do have 15 children. So that itself is really kind of crazy. But I
Yeah,
was an only child, and my mom came from a big family, and she was the first one to graduate college. And so she was very driven with academics. So I was a high performer, and I really learned that if I wanted something, I had to work for it. The problem with that was that it happened at the expense of my health. So as I had more children, I was a stay-home mom. I met my husband in college. We both graduated from Indiana University. Got to shout them out. They're college football champions this year.
yeah, way to go.
But I got my degree in marketing, and I just kind of put it on the shelf because I felt like I couldn't have a career and be a mom at the same time. I felt this conflict between the two. And
Mm,
so, really, I just felt like, I was raised with receiving this validation for who I was through all these, awards or grades and things of that nature. So that transition to not really being recognized for anything as a mother, it was really a hard transition, which I believe was a catalyst for a lot of my time being depressed.
thank you for being so open about this, and you
Mhm.
have for a very, very long time, and that's inspired people that normally would just stay in the shadows and minimize. And anytime they go to your Zoom call or live stream, it's obvious these people were perked up, like giving a plant, a dying plant some water kind of thing, right? So I want to paint this before we move on because this is very important. People think they're alone in this, and they're not.
Yeah.
And your courage and messages can resonate with so many. So what did survival mode look like for you during those 13 years? Because that's not what people see today.
Yeah. Well, for me, it was burning the candle at both ends. I got like 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night. I was just always on the go, never really having that time for myself. And even having time to think about, is this the best way of doing something? When I talk about depression, I think it's important because I wasn't even aware that I was depressed. I was in the survival mode for so many years that I got hospitalized 3 times, and each of those hospitalizations were spearheaded from my husband. So that alone had a challenge because, I blamed him. I wouldn't be in this situation if it was because of you, and then I blamed the kids, my circumstances, but it
Mm.
wasn't until after that last hospitalization that I took a look in the mirror and said, I'm the common denominator. I'm blaming my kids, and some of them weren't even born at each of these levels of being hospitalized. And, it just I didn't have any power when I was blaming other people. I couldn't change anything if I kept blaming them. So I realized if something was going to have to change, I was going to have to be the one to do something about it.
Wow. Birds of a feather flock together, right? Like, man, because that's a long time. But I mean, some
Mhm.
people never get to that. And that's why we're sharing this story. So, real quick to wrap this one up, but what do you remember the catalyst? Was there a certain point where you're like, yeah, this is when I got to change? What was that moment? Do you remember that moment where you said, I got to change?
Well, it was when I got home after the last hospitalization. I thought, it was a lot of pressure with coming home and trying to rekindle things with my family because I was gone for, 7 to 10 days each time I was hospitalized. And I just didn't want to go back there. I just made up my mind that that was it. I cut my hair, went totally natural. I used to get perms and all this stuff. Cut my hair. I stopped watching the news. I got off social media because what I found was that I didn't know myself. I was so busy seeking validation, people pleasing, and trying to give to other people what I just didn't have. I was really depleted a lot of times. And so I didn't even know, do I want to do this or am I just doing this because people think I should do it? I really just didn't know myself. And
Woo.
so I figured this was the time for me to get back to knowing myself not feeling like I had to show up with my hair a certain way or the right kind of earrings and all this. I had to learn to really forgive and love myself for who I was and show up that way and then build a real solid foundation.
My goodness. See, it's like we grew up in the same house. But see, that's what I mean. We think we're alone. We're not
Yeah.
alone, folks. All across the world, no matter where you're at, what background, we're human beings and we deal with
Hmm.
this. And so thank you for being so open because I know folks that hear this now and later need to hear it if they're going to untap and get it done. Because there's no like free lunch, right? There's no magic bullet. You just got to make it. And I call it being sick and tired of being sick and tired. I do that a
Yes.
lot. Like I just get to the end of it. It sucks, but it's the most healthiest thing because you ain't got nothing to lose. You're like, I'm going to tackle the problem. I'm not going to bury my head in the sand. And by the way, 15 kids. What the first thing I told you? I said that 15 kids in Atlanta. That's the Atlanta Falcons, right? It's a football team, right? Whoa, I got two, and I'm like, oh, So that's not a moniker. That is the well earned title.
Oh,
So
thank you.
you're welcome. Well, let's talk about this because you're full of courage, and I'm always talking
Yeah.
about courage before confidence, right?
Hmm.
And so, what does it mean to pivot publicly, especially as a woman? When you get to this transition and you're making these changes, what's your experience? You deal with you work with a lot of ladies, so you have a lot of
Yes.
extensive background.
Yes. And coming from a business background and as a high performance background, there was a lot of fear around being vulnerable and transparent because, I lived my whole life just trying to have this perfect lifestyle, make all the right answers and all this type of thing. And so it really took a lot of unlearning. I had to learn, first of all, to get better with myself
Hmm.
and to accept myself the way that I was, because I really found as I was on my healing journey that I was really the biggest bully. I had a great conversation with Robin Simpson, who's in the Hounds yesterday. And I was telling her how I used to have these thoughts like, oh, I can't say this to them because they're going to say this and they're going to say that. They're in front of me. I'm not having the conversation with them. I'm having this conversation in my head. And so she said, well, that's really just a hallucination. And I thought, you are absolutely right. I have this whole story, a total fantasy about what
Hmm.
people are thinking and saying, and I'm not giving them the opportunity to express their own feelings and even get factual data behind what I'm thinking. And so I think there's so much of that goes on to where we make the gap bigger because of our own thoughts that we have that are really just opinions and they're not even factual, you know?
Oh, I know. Somebody even called me out yesterday, and I said, you know what? I was so traumatized, I couldn't even admit I was. I was like,
Yeah.
they pinpointed, but
Mhm.
that's the point. Like
Mhm.
face it, and boy, you're good at that. So you call this a fresh start, right? You
Yes.
talk about that a whole lot. Fresh with capital letters, fresh, right?
Yes.
So what does that really mean?
Well, it's 5 pillars that I feel like when I started coaching, I was my first client. Okay, because I went through everything that I teach other people. But it's 5 pillars, and the first one is using fear as fuel. So I love that you brought up courage because we a lot of times don't have courage. We do things afraid, but we have to keep doing it anyway if we want the outcome that we desire. So that was the first thing that really got me into making a change was that I didn't want to go back to the hospital again. I didn't want to waste another year in depression. So I used that fear to channel it as fuel. The next one is reframing your past. I would try to come home, forget that I was in the hospital and have a fresh start. But there was something about that story that helped mold me to who I was. I couldn't just forget it. I had to learn how to reframe it so that I can embrace it and be my full self. The next part is to envision our success, right? So we have to see ourselves differently. And a lot of times, even though I was at the same house with the same kids, same spouse, same car, I had to create visual cues. So it was vision boards, screensavers, affirmations around on my phone and around the house. The next thing is a support group or tribe. There were times that I tried to change all the time by myself, unsuccessfully. But when I learned how to align with people and collaborate with them around the true struggles that I was having, I was able to get stronger and stronger and not have to try to transform my family when I wasn't strong enough to. They started transforming from what they saw in me because I had a support group outside of them. And then the last element is healing. Healing takes a lifetime, and I had to learn to be patient with myself and other people and realize that we heal every day from unlearning some things that we didn't never knew we might have been traumatized by. So that's fresh
Woo.
start.
You preach to the choir. Oh my goodness gracious. I'm serious. I'm like, we wow. And folks, hey, I put the comment in there, share. If you're comfortable, share. This is
Mhm.
open, safe space, folks. And real quick, talking about somebody who's overcome obstacles and pushes people up, we got to give a shout out to Mike King of Mike King Biz
Yeah.
Radio. We've had a partnership for a couple of years now. It's phenomenal. This guy, March Madness, right? They put him on the jumbotron when he shows up to the ball games, right? They
Oh,
love this man. So thank you, Mike King. Our partnership, pushing people up international together, Women's Month, your support for hashtag She Wins March, impeccable, unbelievable. You're a great man. Appreciate this. And folks, if you want to catch this live, you want to chat with folks in the comments, you want more information, we'll put all of this on YouTube, Hounds of Business on YouTube. You can find me, Mike Asherbrenner, or Redneck One on LinkedIn. Uh, we'll put all the showcase, all the things, because we're going to talk about Women's Month coming up. And guess who is we're the Hounds of Business is spearheading and leading up the Wednesday live stream. We have a wonderful guest, amazing guest, and then we have America's Supermom here, who is actually doing the celebration on Zoom, March
mhm.
26th, 2 to 4 p.m. If you watch this live or in the recording, you'll see the hashtag. All right, you can get all the information there. No pitch slapping with a P, no cheap infomercials. This is all, hey, come learn, celebrate, giveaways. Right room, folks. We're past all the marketing fatigue. We're past all that trust deficit the size of Texas. This is, hey, you show up, we're still in the Costco playbook. Hey, that little old lady said, "Hey, would you like a piece?" I didn't plan on buying the sausage, but after talking to her and eating 5 of them, I bought 3. So that's how we roll. So come celebrate, be your best self, get around people that can elevate you. And so now, speaking of those people, I don't know hardly anyone that can be in the ranks of Supermom here. I'm gonna make her blush. But so let's I want to skip around a little bit because
Okay.
the comments are bumping. This is their show. What does reinvention require that most people aren't prepared for?
Well, I think it is you learning how you want to show up, right? I don't think we really reinvent ourselves. We go back to who we are and we allow people to see more of that fully.
Mm,
I don't think I had to change who I was and have a different perspective or things like that. What I had done was buried who I was.
mm,
My voice wasn't what it is today because, I allowed certain people to say certain things or, I tried to transform into something that I wasn't instead of just fully accepting who I was. So I think when there's a reinvention, it is really you being able to show a different facet of who you are because we all have different skills and talents, a lot more than what we always show to everybody. And it's for a specific audience. Right now we're on this platform. We don't necessarily have to talk about Facebook, LinkedIn, or some of these other places because we're on this platform, right?
yes.
Now, if they want to know more about that, it's in the show notes. But I think we spend too much time trying to prove ourselves and tell all the things about us that we don't get a chance to really connect with people. So when you reinvent yourself, you really kind of tell people what you want them to see and what you want to focus on so that they can connect with you on that aspect.
Woo wee. Listen, I'm not gonna mess that up with my isms. All right, folks. Hey, in the comments, Hounds, friends of the Hounds, if you'd like to see me and Supermom or some other folks, you want to bring her back to the HOB live where we can say potty words and you talk for longer than an hour. Y'all let me know. I'll make it happen. All right, April, let's do it. All right, let's do it in April. So let me ask you these closing questions. I told you this went too fast, didn't it? We
Okay.
got we got about 7-8 minutes. Um, One of the themes that really you rubbed off on me, you really helped
Hmm.
me to formulate my business, Hounds, and just the guy I wanted to be was purpose over performance,
Yeah.
purpose before performance.
Mhm.
And so, what's the difference between surviving and living on purpose? Right? Because you've been on both sides, like me, and so many. What do you think the main difference is?
Well, I think when you live on purpose, you have more peace.
Mm,
Okay, I can sleep at night. I can take a nap in the day. I can go on vacation. Just if you bring up the collaboration that we're doing now with She Wins March, we have a lot of conversations behind the scenes. We are really focused on our relationship. And so other people don't see that. So
right.
sometimes when we pop up and we do things that are in the limelight, so to speak, it's really hard for people to say, well, who is this? Where were they at? Because a lot of the relationship building happens behind the scenes. And so I think when you're purposeful, you have the clarity of knowing who you need to connect with and who you need to support, because it's not always about the masses understanding that. So when you live on purpose, you are able to have that clarity and you have a lot more energy because you don't waste your time in spaces and places that are just tolerating you, or they're trying to use you for their own gain.
Yeah, be celebrated, not tolerated.
Yes.
Woo! I like that. I'm gonna put that on the bumper sticker. That's probably already on the bumper sticker, but maybe
Hmm.
I'll crochet it on a pillow or something cool like that. So let me ask you, because you have been a driving force, right? In hashtag She Wins March, this is something you're really great at putting on spectacular, meaningful, and purposeful events, especially
Hmm.
virtual. So, what
Hmm.
does She Wins March mean to you personally? Why is it such a important to you?
Well, first I have to give you credit, for bringing together so many women who are passionate about being purposeful with our relationships and helping each other win, showing support. And so when we got on our first planning call, I believe it was Sam who came up with the hashtag. But I think when you have a theme or a hashtag, it gives people the ability to focus on what's important. You know, um, it drives everyone to the same theme. And so they realize that it's not really hard when we collaborate together. We all are focused on winning. And
Mm.
so being able to set the stage for that, I think it's important that you do that early on with any collaboration, because it helps you to stay focused on what your mission is, because life is going to happen. We have kids that are sick, we get sick, other people get sick, we got technology challenges, all these things. But when you have that theme and focus, it really helps people to say, okay, this is a priority for whatever this collaboration is. And I can stay focused on that in spite of life's challenges. And it makes it easier for you to explain it and spread the message to other people, because it's very clear what you're working on in front of everybody. And so everybody can get on board and see the whole theme and idea and what the goal is in real time.
All right. Well, we still got about 4 minutes. So let me ask you this:
Okay.
for the women listening, right, who feels
Yes.
they're feeling delayed or behind, or maybe down, maybe depressed, right?
Hmm.
Kind of in that spot. They might be like, I'm ready to go, but not ready yet. In that little on the
Hmm.
fence, maybe. What would you tell her? What would you like them to know?
Well, I would say, you really can't know what your next step is if you're not willing to be honest about it.
Mm,
When it comes to coaching, which I'm sure you see a lot in the coaching you do and helping people with their businesses, they have to be ready for a change and they have to have that awareness. If you have that awareness, don't give yourself the impossible challenge of thinking that you have to change tomorrow.
yeah,
It's important to have baby steps and
babies.
small wins to build up your confidence so that you can have a transformation that really is important to you. And then I think the next thing is that you have to take accountability. I had to learn that I was the biggest bully to myself, right? It was the choices that I made. Nobody told me that what I was doing was right or wrong. I was the one that was doing that. And so when we're willing to admit that and then realize that we have the power to change it, then that's when the journey can really take a transformation, because you're open and willing to listen to other people who have been successful with things that you're striving for.
Okay, before the audience gets mad at me, tell them where they can go, right? What are some of the things that you're doing other than hashtag She Wins March celebration? Where can they go to find more about you, tap into your Zoom calls, whatever? Go for it. They'll be mad if you don't tell them.
Well, I am on LinkedIn. That's really where a lot of my content is, and Substack. That's something that I'm really working on building right now. Honest conversations. So if anybody wants to be a guest, I welcome them to come on because I'm building an audience there as well as meeting great people. So it really is a fun place to show up. Now, I am on other social media platforms, but I just want to say that, you know, it's so important to kind of know your brand and what your message is more so than the places that you show up.
I agree.
You really should be clear on that because there are so many people that are searching for the right audience in order for them to collaborate with, to support. And so I think that's the most important thing is that we know who we are, what we bring to the table. And when you have that clarity, it's inspirational for other people because they feel like, oh, I don't have to be somebody else. I can still be a redneck and tell crazy jokes
Who
and have
knew?
fun. Okay.
Who knew? Hey, man,
Absolutely.
you are something else, my friend. So, folks, go to LinkedIn, best place to find. Uh,
Hmm.
Go Lachelle Atkins. That's
Hmm.
Adkins because I
Hmm.
mess it up all the time. Atkins. All right, America's Supermom. Google search it, plug in. And
Hmm.
last question for the last minute or two. I'm
Okay.
pulling it up on the screen. So, this is a collaboration. We want to give a shout out to Kindness Worldwide, the promotional partners, right? April Wyatt, Living with Intention. I Am Magazine, not just
Hmm.
the women, but now the men's division
Yeah.
that I think like 80% are hounds. It's thrilling, right? It's an amazing
Hmm.
magazine. Thanks to you in the introduction. And Brand Face, America's Supermom Company, and the woman led amazing foundation by Shonda Spates. That's
Hmm.
Flourish Foundation Project. That's the one that's helping our youth with self harm and prevention. And that's the big event they have at Lake Placid, the Olympic Center in Lake Placid, New York, in May.
Yeah.
So now that I talked about that, what do you want folks to know? Why is this dear to your heart? And what do you want them to know? Whatever it is, we'll close out with this. Tell them all about the celebration and how this impacts women.
Well, I first want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to share with your audience and everybody who's listening. But I think the most important thing I want people to know is that you can collaborate and not compete. So often we are caught up in feeling like if somebody else shines, that we have to dim our light or vice versa. But this is an opportunity for us through all these events that are happening through the month of March to show that we all can win. There are so many different people that are out there looking for support. They're looking for answers in order to live better. I mean, there's just so many things can't even name them all. But when we learn to model how to collaborate, that's what's important. And so this celebration is for us to pull our networks together and learn how we can collaborate. Nobody's expecting us to change and be somebody we're not. We're coming together for us all to shine and for us to continue to build those lasting relationships that can help us even beyond March. So that's what we're excited about.
Yes, ma'am. And us men are too. You know that behind every strong man is a strong woman. Well, we're flipping the script on that. So you got Nathan
Mhm.
Mitchell leading Power TV. He's restreaming, supporting this. And then guess what? Maybe in June we'll do it again. We'll flip the roles. Uh,
Mhm.
but thank you. Thank you for the idea. Thank you for being so gracious and so collaborative and everything. You just pour everything into everything from heart and you give it all. And that's so I love the coming together of the communities, the ecosystems, folks in the audience, folks on air. Thank you so much for tuning in. Best thing to do, tap into, register. You're not going to get pitch slaps and emails. You're going to get notifications so you don't miss the party. Okay. That's what you're going to get. I don't do email stuff. I don't like it. So go ahead and tap into it or share it with somebody who may. That's all we ask. Guys, this is celebration and empowerment and real knowledge. You don't sell it, you share it. So thank you in advance. And Supermom, you're amazing. We got to run, but I'll have you back on. The people have spoken. Looks like we're going to do it again in April on the HOB Live. So what do you say?
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I don't turn down nothing but my caller. So I'm excited.
Oh my goodness. Y'all don't want to miss this one. This will be unfiltered discussion. All right. So we'll tune in soon. See you at March. We'll see you tomorrow. That's 7 p.m. on the Hounds of Business Eastern Time. Don't miss this panel. It's inspiring and network in the comments. Right room means all. So we'll see you later. Have a good one, folks. Thanks for stopping by.
Bye, everybody.
Thank y'all for stopping by. Be sure to follow, share, and like, and send me a message if you had fun today. Y'all come back now.